This video is a guided practice video that will show you examples of sentence fragments and different ways that you can fix them. To make the most out of this video, you should pause the video when you're instructed, complete the work on your own, and then resume the video when you're ready. This will allow you to compare your work to the answers I will show you so that you can determine how well you're understanding the material. So, let's begin. Here's our first example. Nicholas Sparks wrote the book The Notebook, a story with deep thought and emotions. Which one of those two sentences is the sentence fragment? The second one, a story with deep thought and emotions. The first sentence is a complete sentence because it contains all three parts to a complete sentence. We have the subject, Nicholas Sparks. We have the predicate, what Nicholas Sparks did. He wrote the book The Notebook. And it's a complete thought. The second sentence says, a story with deep thought and emotions. This doesn't have a complete thought, and it doesn't appear to have either a subject or a predicate. There's no verb in there, so I would say that it doesn't have a predicate. We could say that a story with deep thought and emotions is a subject. So there are two ways to fix a sentence fragment. Remember, one way is to add a word or phrase, and the other way is to connect the fragment to another sentence. At this point, pause the video and try to find two different ways that you could fix that sentence fragment to make it a complete sentence. When you've finished, resume the video to compare what you did to how I will fix these. So, how would I fix these sentence fragments? Well, the first thing I would do is add the word or phrase to add what's missing. I already said that I think this sentence fragment does not have a predicate because it doesn't have a verb. So if I assume that this, a story with deep thought and emotions, is the subject, I need to add the predicate to it. So I'm going to say, a story with deep thought and emotions always makes me cry. Now I have a subject, a story with deep thought and emotions, and I have a predicate, it always makes me cry, and I have a complete thought. So I fix that fragment into a complete sentence. The other way I can fix a sentence fragment is to connect the sentence fragment to another complete sentence. So in this case, I'm going to connect the two. I'm going to say, Nicholas Sparks wrote the book, The Notebook, which is a story with deep thought and emotions. And if I connect the two that way, I have the subject, Nicholas Sparks is still my subject of this sentence. That didn't change. But now I have a much longer predicate to tell me about Nicholas Sparks, that he wrote the book, The Notebook, which is a story with deep thought and emotions. So those are two ways I could fix that sentence fragment. But let's look at another example. The room was a mess, toys of all kinds thrown everywhere. Which of those two sentences is our sentence fragment? Well, our first sentence has a subject, the room, and it also has a predicate, was a mess, and it's a complete thought. So that sentence is not a fragment. Let's look at the other one, toys of all kinds thrown everywhere. Well, this has a subject, toys, but it doesn't, and it has a verb, thrown, so I guess we could say it sort of has a predicate, but it's not a complete thought because it's not telling us what about the toys of all kinds thrown everywhere. So that's the sentence I need to fix. At this point, pause the video, try to fix that sentence fragment two different ways, and when you're ready, resume the video to compare your work to mine. So I'm going to first fix this sentence fragment by adding what's missing. I think it has a subject, but it just needs a fulfilled predicate with some sort of more information to tell us what it is about these toys that were thrown everywhere that the writer's trying to tell us. So I'm going to say, toys of all kinds were thrown everywhere. Now I have this complete verb, were thrown, which makes us have a complete sentence. I still have the subject, toys, but now my predicate of all kinds were thrown everywhere makes this a complete sentence. My second way I can fix this is to connect my fragment to another complete sentence. So if I do that, I would end up with something like this. Toys of all kinds, which were thrown everywhere, made the room a mess. Now, to connect these two sentences, I had to do a bit more rewording of my two complete sentences to make it all work together. But now I have my subject, toys of all kinds, and then I have my predicate, which were thrown everywhere, made the room a mess. So as you can see, when we connect one fragment to a complete sentence, we don't necessarily have to put it at the end of another sentence. It can go at the beginning or in the middle of the complete sentence too. Here's our third example. For this example, I'm not going to guide you through the subject, predicate, and identifying which one is the fragment. I want you to do that yourself. So here's our example. Marketers are charged with persuading customers to make a purchase, the ultimate effect of all advertising. What I'd like you to do at this point is pause the video, identify which one of these two sentences is the fragment, and for the complete sentence, identify which part is the subject and which part is the predicate. When you've done that, resume the video, and then we'll look at how to fix that fragment later. All right, so my first sentence, marketers, has a subject, marketers, and what do marketers do? They are charged with persuading consumers to make a purchase. There is my predicate, and that is a complete sentence. My second sentence, the ultimate effect of all advertising, is the fragment. This doesn't have a verb, so it either doesn't have a subject or a predicate. I guess depending on how you worded it would determine whether or not it was missing the subject or the predicate. So now that we know which one of these sentences is the fragment, it's time to fix it. Pause the video, write down 2 ways to fix this fragment, and then when you're finished, resume the video to compare your work to mine. Okay, are you ready? All right, so our first fix is to add a word or a phrase to make this a complete sentence. So I'm going to assume that this is a subject because it doesn't have a verb, so it can't have a predicate. So to fix this, I'm going to say that the ultimate effect of all advertising is to make a sale. And so now my subject is the ultimate effect of all advertising. All of that is my subject. And my predicate becomes is to make a sale. And so now I have a complete sentence. The second way that I can fix the fragment is to add it to my complete sentence. So to do that, I'm going to take this first complete sentence, marketers are charged with persuading consumers to make a purchase, and I'm going to add the next sentence to it with the connecting word which. And so this is going to say, marketers are charged with persuading consumers to make a purchase, which is the ultimate effect of advertising. And so now my subject is still marketers, but the whole rest of that is my predicate. Last example, paying too much attention to polls. Political leaders can become unwilling to propose innovative policies. Just like in our third example, I would like you to figure out which one is the complete sentence and which one is the fragment. And for the complete sentence, identify the subject and the predicate. Pause your video at this time and complete those steps. And then when you're done, resume the video to see how you did, and then we'll fix the fragment. Pause now. Okay, so welcome back. So here we had paying too much attention to polls and political leaders can become unwilling to propose innovative policies. In our first sentence, we have paying too much attention to polls. Well, we have a verb, paying too much attention. We don't have a subject. We don't know who's paying too much attention, so that must be our fragment. Our second sentence, we have the subject, political leaders. And then our predicate is, can become unwilling to propose innovative policies. So now that we have identified which one is the complete sentence and which one is the fragment, it's time to fix them. At this point, pause the video, come up with 2 different ways to fix these fragments and write those sentences down, and then resume the video when you're ready. So let's fix these fragments. Again, my first method is to add a word or a phrase to my fragment. So if I did that, I would add my subject because we already have a verb. I think we have a predicate, and I would say, some politicians pay too much attention to polls. If I do that, now I have the subject, some politicians, and I have the fragment, pay too much attention to polls, and I now have a complete sentence. The second way I can fix this fragment is to connect it to the other complete sentence. And if I do that, I would have something like this. Paying too much attention to polls can cause political leaders to become unwilling to propose innovative policies. Let's double check that to make sure I did end up with a complete sentence. So in this case, I've completely flip-flopped the structure of my sentence, and I've actually made paying too much attention to polls my subject. So this is what the sentence is about. The rest of the sentence is the result of paying too much attention to polls and becomes my predicate. So I have paying too much attention to polls can cause political leaders to become unwilling to propose innovative policies. And that is a complete sentence. Hopefully this practice has helped you feel more comfortable with identifying and fixing fragments. It's really important as you're writing for college and for work to always follow the writing process, and when you get to the editing stage, to look for sentence fragments and fix them. This helps your work look more polished and helps make you look more professional.